You may have a brand new MDC-USA trailer, and it likely came with this outdoor annex room. If you have an HR model, an HRT model, a really cool off-grid extreme model from MDC-USA, then this is a standard feature. They may have slightly different panels, but the annex room is a really cool way to expand your camping space on the outside of your trailer and still have it weather enclosed from the weather. You can still have that outdoor cooking. You can have those kids sleep in a really cool tent-like space. There's so many reasons to have this annex room. MDC-USA includes it. So today we're gonna look at the parts and we're gonna set it up just to see what we got. Stick with us. Now there are a few components to this. I have 8 pieces of, let's say, canvas or fabric of some sort. Obviously some of it is more of a plastic material for the floor and whatnot. 8 pieces of that. You do have a bag of poles, you do have some tie downs and some stakes and some straps. We have some other gadgets and gizmos that you're gonna wanna be aware of, so stick with me as we try to show you as much detail as we can, the parts that come in this really robust, complete package for your camping adventures. To get everything started, we're going to start out with this, and this is a draft skirt that covers off the front of the trailer right here to make sure that once you have the completed annex room, you don't have drafts coming from underneath the trailer on the other side to disturb your now enclosed space. So give me a few minutes. I'm going to simply button it on to the buttons on the trailer. Be right with you. All right, we're finishing this up. It's getting a little bit tighter as it's coming to the end here. And you can see it really covers off the front here, and it still leaves full access to all of your bays. You got your refrigerator bay, your kitchen bay, you have your table. In fact, they did a really good job of making sure that the draft skirt also kind of closes off the step area. So really well designed. Oh, look at this. You pull out that kitchen, you still have to get to your connections. There's your water, there's your gas. So, all engineered in. But that's just a draft skirt. Let's go ahead and lay out the floor for this room. Okay, our floor is down, and this is a really heavy duty, I'm gonna guess vinyl is the right term here. And I have it kind of lined up here with the draft skirt. So the next thing we're gonna need to do is we're gonna have to make sure this awning is out because that's gonna become our roof. So give me a moment, we'll put out the awning. Okay, we have the awning out technically, but we're gonna do something with the legs. So here in a second, I'm gonna have you come around. We're gonna look at how these legs work so that we have them set up properly. Come on around. Okay, so these legs, they can be used either straight down on the ground or they can go into a cleat on the wall, which I'll show you in a minute. But what I want you to see is how they work. I'm going to release them from their catch right there, and you notice the whole bar slid out towards me. So let's see how it slides. It slides out like this, and then it pivots on a hinge like so. Then to extend the legs so that they go down, I just release this cam lock and I slide it down, and I can raise or lower the leg like this. But that's not what we want right now. While we're setting up the annex room, I want them sturdy and attached, but not to the ground. So I'm going to slide them right into this space right here. We're gonna slide that bumper up and capture the leg, and I can put a little bit of tension on it just by extending it just a little. Put that cam lock on there, and I'm gonna do that to the other side right now. There you have it. It's pretty sturdy as it is. It's gonna provide a great setup for our roof as we continue to build this annex room. And the next step that we're gonna do is we're actually going to firm up this roof a little bit more by adding a pole right to the center on a little barrel clasp or hold there and there. I'm gonna grab that pole, let's do this. The pole that you want is the one that has a slight bend to it. It has another camming lock on it, and these two kind of barrel clasps, they kind of remind me of the hands of a Lego man. So I'm going to attach them right here with the bend up, kind of like an arrow pointing up. See how it jumped on there? And we're gonna loosen it up come over here and just clip it on, like so. And I'm going to give it a little bit of tension and cam it, and we're in a good spot to do the next step. Now this next step is going to require some more poles, and they're rather long, and they have some neat functionality. They have these camming locks on them that open up to attach to that awning. So they brace up your awning, they add some rigidity to that roof, but they also allow you to attach those wall sections that are going to be dropping down from above to the ground. But to make them a little bit more portable, they do come apart. I'm going to show you that real quick because it could be a little bit confusing, as it has 3 parts. Here's one part, and here's another part, but they need to be held together. And they do that by running this piece into a channel. So I'm going to invite you in real close here because there's only one way that this fits. There's a channel right here, and you're going to notice that it has kind of a rectangled end and then a larger open bottom here, but it's not a perfect rectangle. There is a bevel right here, which corresponds to a bevel on here. I want to make sure that the bevel, which is facing this way, is the same as the bevel facing this way here, and I'll be able to slide that into this channel. If you do it the other way, it simply will not work. It will not go in. You will not be able to join these 2 pieces. Now that I have that in the channel, I should be able to match that bevel again, and from there, bring these 2 pieces together to make one large section ready to go for building your annex room. All right, now I'm going to start adding this back section. This is the section of canvas that goes towards the rear of your trailer, and you're going to notice it has tubing or fluting or whatever you call it that goes across the top. All right, that's going to go into what they call a sail line or sail ridge. I'm used to calling it a keeter rail. And then they have one that goes down the back as well. You'll be able to tell that this is an end piece because it has this little cover on it that goes over the end of the awning to, you know, just protect it a little bit as well. So I have this section of canvas here. It's rather small. In fact, it was already attached to the back wall piece, so look for it. You might have to detach it. And it has a little bit of that tubing to feed right in here. And we're going to start there before we add the post to the top. I'm going to start right here. Look at how easily that slides up, and it's very solid once it's in there. All the way up to the top-ish, because we're going to cap off the end of your awning with that little sleeve there. But the next step is we're going to feed this tubing through the pole. Here we go. Now, again, this area right here does open up to accept this leading edge of the canvas on the awning and to hold it into place. I don't know if it is easier to undo it before you use this pole or not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to feed through the top of this wall piece, and then I'll open it up and put this in place. So let's go through this, see how it goes. Now before I put in this section of support here, do notice that both sides do have a J-hook, but they are still directional because you want this awning clamping mechanism to face the fabric of the awning, the canvas. So one with the J-hook against the wall needs to point towards the canvas. If I had the other one, it would be pointing towards the great outdoors. That won't help you one bit. Let's go ahead. I fed this top canvas through this arm right here, and I'm going to go right again. It has that piping. It's going to go right into the channel on that arm. Starts easily, and we're going to feed that on just like so. Slip down just a little bit. And next, I'm going to use that J-hook on that holder right there. And I'm going to come across, lift this up, and I'm going to set this. I'm going to tilt it a little bit in to past the edge here, and then just bring it over on top of this fitting right here, and I'll pull my fabric to the other side. We're in a great place. Let's go ahead and add our rear wall next. Okay, here we are, the rear wall, and again, more of that piping, more of that channel. Here we go, right into the channel. We're gonna make sure we feed it. Make sure that you don't have it fighting you. If you find any binding, if you're really having any kind of resistance, slow down, stop, check it out, and see what's going on. Now I'm gonna bring this all the way up to this edge right at the top because there is Velcro. And I'm just gonna start with a little bit of just kind of holding it in place here so that we can get started and come across easily. Okay, so that does that. Now this just gets me into a placeholder position because what I don't want you to miss is how to clamp this onto the awning. So I'm gonna come back to this in just a moment. Let's go ahead and clamp this on. Let's do it. This fabric from the awning really needs to be sandwiched into that clamp. I'm going to go ahead and release all those cams all the way down. So here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. And then I'm going to make sure that that awning fabric carefully, because I don't want to tear anything, I don't want to harm anything, is carefully placed into that open clamping system all the way down. There we go, still open. So the next step is to simply clamp it down and make sure that it holds. Here's the camming mechanism. We're going to go ahead and clamp this first one, making sure that the canvas is out of the way. Ooh, it's tight. Okay, next one. There we go. Maybe not so tight on that one. And there we go. Now we're really attached to that canvas on the top. We have this bit of Velcro to attach to this back wall. We'll peg it down in the corner and we'll move on around. We're doing great. Let's keep going. So we're still working on this back wall. Back to it. There's Velcro here and there's Velcro here. So here's the back wall piece. Here's your draft skirt. I'm going to go ahead and attach those all the way down. And if you're fighting any breeze whatsoever, this is the time to make sure that you are pegged into place, everything holds, and you're rigid. And we can go ahead and use this Velcro to here and start to build our walls. Okay, ready for the next cut? Yeah. Now that I have this wall built, I can go ahead and I can either leave this up for a little bit longer or I can go ahead and bring this leg down. Up to you, and it will rest on the floor, on the canvas floor. Again, working term, canvas floor. It will rest on there and then you can short up. But you have a D-hook here at the bottom, and you have another grommet that you can run another stake into. So let me do that real quick. Let's firm this up a little bit. Now, I probably don't need to do this pole just yet, but I'm gonna try it real quick. I'm gonna release the cleat, slide the foot out. Notice how I already made this a little bit more slack, so I can bring it down to the canvas floor here. And I'm just going to have it, fairly upright. Put a little downward pressure on it by lengthening it, and we'll cam that in place. Pretty firm. And the next step, I'm going to take this D loop at the bottom here. I want to match it up with this grommet on the floor, and we're going to hold that in place with a little bit of stake action. One more stake in the middle section here, another D loop. It's a little bit floppy in the wind. You can go ahead and release the cam, put a little bit more length in this pole, and you're gonna notice that it tightens up that wall quite a bit. So while you're building it, don't be afraid to make adjustments with, a little bit less, a little bit more slack in the length of the poles to make sure that everything looks and feels solid. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add this much larger section, this much larger panel to make our length, the long wall. Again, using that piping through that channel. Now I'm gonna try to do this alone. It is so much easier with two people, but Caitlyn is only 5'4.5", so she might not be all that much help anyways. Let's get this go. Okay, we've made it all the way to the end channel. It's already looking great, and I can tell you, it's completely doable all by yourself. I did it all by myself except for a little bit of help and attitude from Caitlyn, but here we are. And as per the other panels, the same way, we can Velcro the edging, and there's a D-loop at the end so we can really tighten this up, and we'll do the same thing as we work with the other panels. So let me get to that real quick. Okay, the next step is going to be adding another support for this awning roof. And again, it's going to take one of these ends, these J ends, close to the trailer, and it has the same cam lock mechanism to hold the awning. So you'll know that you have the right piece if the J end is on the trailer side and that cam awning clamp opens towards the fabric. Now, the roof section, this is what you'll need to pay attention to. That piping that feeds through that channel is on top, and this little pocket here is meant to cover the end cap of your awning. So it needs to be closest to the trailer as well, which means it needs to be closest to this J hook. So let me go ahead and feed that through and we'll get started. I'm going to put that piping through the end of the channel right there. And then to help prevent binding, I'm going to hold out as straight as I can to allow it to feed through pretty evenly and smoothly as I hold it down. There we go. A little bit further, and we're there. Okay, there we are. And we'll attach it to the roof. Now this is a good time to choose if you're going to try to assemble this with this arm in place. It can be a little bit in the way if you do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some of this tension off of this, lift the locking mechanism, take the cleat out, the foot out of the cleat, and I'm going to extend this downward, again, on top of your floor, relatively straight, lift it up to somewhat level. All right, and let that hold in place, and now we're gonna add our roof section for the front side. J-hook on its little latch point right there. And there we go. And then we'll slide this end over. Notice how I have to swing it out to get a little bit of clearance. And then we'll tuck it in. Let me get that out of the way. All right. Come around like that, right on top. There. Sets up nicely. And this will be your roof section, so I'm not attaching it using the Velcro to this wall or anything else. We have another panel or two to add. Now, I didn't show you this on the other side, so let's go ahead and do it now. There's a little pocket on the end of this canvas, just like on the back side of the trailer, and it covers the end of your awning. So we're going to use this. It has a little bungee cording in there. We're going to go ahead and slip that up and over, protect the end of that. It also holds it a little bit tight there, so that's nice. So you want to do that to the front side and the back side of this canvas. Now, maybe the coolest or the oddest shaped piece of the whole works is this guy right here. So that's a little bit of a window right here. You can see what's going on at the front of your trailer when you're inside, but also it attaches exactly the same way. We have that piping that runs in this channel, and we're gonna run that right now. Get started and slide this relatively easily all the way up. You'll find a little bit of friction, but where that piping or that tubing ends inside that fabric is right here at the end of that channel. So I don't really want to go any further than that. Now, from there, I can connect this right there, and it's all coming together. Bear with me. There's more Velcro down here. Very cool. Let's go on to the next step. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull out this mallet and some stakes and some guy lines. The stakes, the guy lines, they come with your MDC-USA. You're going to supply your own Thor's hammer. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this ready for the poles to make sure they're really rigid when I set them up. I'm going to put them somewhere around 45 degrees and maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 feet out from the edges. Let me get started on that. Now the trick to ties like this is obviously we have a end for the top part of the awning, but this lower end is our part that helps you to make it tight. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna loop this loop end around the stake, and whenever it pulls it tight, it's going to pinch the rope at this top part and keep it from sliding. So it is a good way to tighten or just adjust the tension on your poles. So that's what we're gonna do. I don't have my poles set up yet, but we're gonna have it ready. The next step is going to involve poles. Now there's 3 of these that have this peg on the end and a closed end foot on the other. So we obviously going to need one here, one there. Then we have a spanner that goes on top. Notice how it fits right across the top here. So it'll span across both sides and extend to make that part rigid. But wait, there is more, because we have another spanner that goes to this pole on this side, and it has a little spot that accepts that right there, and this will go right into this lower channel here, and that'll stretch out to make it rigid this way. So this corner pole is very, very important, as it needs to accept both of these poles on it as you're getting set up. All right, so let's see if we can figure this one out together. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to find the grommet that this pin feeds through, and it's right here. So this obviously needs to feed through from the bottom, but before I do that, I want one end of this pole that has the loop ends on both sides on there. I'm going to feed this through. And then after I feed this through, we're going to go on to the next step, which is we're going to put our loop end, because I added a loop end to this rope, on top of that pin. And while it's a little bit under tension, I'm going to lower this leg and tighten it up. Nothing has to be perfect just yet. It needs to be sturdy enough to move on to the next step. Now the next thing I'm going to do to hopefully make my life a little bit easier is I'm going to release this cam right here, and I'm going to rough size this in. Obviously I can resize this later, but I'm going to rough size this in to make this pole on this side about the right length to meet this little grommet right here. Does not have to be perfect, but it might make your life a little easier. Stretch it out. And there we go. Let's do the other one. Here's that spanner for the other side. Now it has a pin and it has an eyelet. So what I'm gonna do is the same thing, but there's a section of channel right there that pin's gonna go in. We're going to slide that in, and then we're going to, again, just rough size that. So I'm gonna find the eyelet of the canvas. I'm gonna match it to the eyelet on the spanner, and again, rough size it. We're just gonna rough it in. We can always make it right perfect later. So I'm gonna extend that out. That's gonna help me a lot. So let's go ahead and cam that locked, and it should be about the right size. Good place to be, because now with this pole and the 2 spanners at a rough length, I should be able to put the pin of this pole through that spanner, put the pin of this pole through this spanner, and then through that eyelet, extend that pole down, and then really the part that I lack is adding my guy line, which I already have in place, and I need to loosen it up a little, right to the top. Of that post, I'm gonna grab that locking mechanism, tighten that thing up. And again, nothing has to be perfect just yet, but this is pretty good. Rigid at the top, rigid at the bottom, tighten it up a little. And we're starting to look like we're in a fantastic place. I mean, if you see a little Velcro here and there, not the worst time to go ahead and start getting things into place. There is a third one of these wall support poles. I'm gonna show you where you can put it. It's a pole just like the other ones with the pin end and the foot end. There's a little bit of tether and grommet right there. So we're gonna loosen that cam lock, extend that up, put the pin in here, and lower this down. Doesn't have to be perfect. There you go. And on the outside, there's another place where you can put another guy line to make sure that this is really held in place. Let's do it real quick. Come through. And then we'll go ahead and put this free end right around that stake that we put in the ground. Use the tightening mechanism to shore that up. And it's just getting better as we go. Let's keep going. I'm reminded right now how cool it's gonna be to cook in the outside, maybe in your annex room, and enjoy this space. But until we're set up, let's put on some steaks. This next wall is just more of the same. We're gonna Velcro it down this side corner, across the top, and then we're gonna be ready for the last piece. But I'm also going to stake down the bottom to make sure that any breeze doesn't pick it up and it stays, you know, tent square. Not perfectly square, but perfectly tent square. Let's try this. This could very well be the last piece of the puzzle. I think it is. We're gonna Velcro it on. I'm gonna go through on the floor, make sure the corners are staked down appropriately, the edges are staked down. Then I'm gonna open these windows and doors, and maybe we'll get on to some camping. Let's do this. Now let's get on to adding a couple more stakes, open these windows, and let's see what we got. Okay, this is the space that is added to your trailer when you build out the annex room that is included with the MDC-USA trailers. Now, I think it could still be brighter and more open, so I'm going to go ahead and open up these windows and doors, and let's see how nice this interior space can get. And look at this. This is a really cool added space that comes with your MDC-USA trailer, if it's the HR, HRT, or off-grid extreme. And wow, the space it adds, the things you can do. Just imagine you're camping for a longer setup and you have friends with you, you want to cook outside, you want to relax outside, you want a little bit of privacy, you want all the breeze and the sunlight. This annex room is stout, it's rugged, it does all the things. Hopefully, this helps you to see how to set it up and that you can do it anywhere you want to. So there it is. Remember that there are different lengths of trailer from MDC-USA. So this is a 16, but there are other formats that have this same annex room. So some of the panels may be different sizes. So some of the panels may be different sizes, but ultimately they go together the same way. So there you go. The annex room, your quick how-to. Set up the annex room with your MDC-USA trailer. I think it's time to get to camping.